United States President-elect Joe Biden has unveiled the details of a $2 trillion coronavirus rescue package designed to support American households and businesses through the pandemic. The proposal, called the America Rescue Plan, includes several familiar stimulus measures in the hope that additional fiscal support will sustain U.S. families and firms until the COVID-19 vaccine is widely available. From Washington, our special correspondent John Cookson reports on this.
Make sure that we demonstrate to the American people.
The plan is the first of two major spending initiatives Biden will seek in the first few months of his presidency. There's another one in February aimed at creating new jobs. COVID is Biden's top priority. It's devastated society. Nearly 400,000 Americans are dead, and that number is set to rise before vaccines are universally available. He announced the massive stimulus package during a primetime address.
I'd like to talk to you about our way forward. A two-step plan of rescue and recovery. A two-step plan to build a bridge to the other side of the crisis we face to a better, stronger, more secure America. Tonight, I'll lay out my first step, the American Rescue Plan, that will tackle the pandemic and get direct financial assistance and relief to Americans who need it the most. Next month, my first appearance before a joint session of Congress, I will lay out my Build Back Better recovery plan. It'll make historic investments in infrastructure, that Build Back Better plan. Infrastructure, manufacturing, innovation, research and development, and clean energy. Investments in a caregiving economy and in skills and training needed by our workers to be able to compete and win in the global economy.
Meanwhile, ahead of Wednesday's inauguration, state capitals across the nation have stepped up security amid heightened safety concerns following last week's violence in Washington. This was Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. In Washington itself, I took a walk down once busy streets. The singing voice is a homeless man. I'm walking down 13th Street in Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States. Now, this street should be packed with people, with trucks, with cars, shoppers, businessmen, with life. But there's nothing here. It's just unbelievable. Let's just see the scene as we look at empty businesses, boarded up shops and businesses. Nothing at all except the occasional car. Behind me, you can see him and hear him singing, is a religious fanatic, praying to God to save America. This is Washington, D.C., a week before the inauguration of a new president. It's just quite incredible. John Cookson, Arise News, Washington.
That was Arise special correspondent John Cookson joining us now from Washington, D.C. for a recap of a momentous week gone by as we look ahead as what promises will be the defining week in which the Biden-Harris administration is inaugurated. Rotimi Kade, Arise News correspondent. It's a pleasure having you, Rotimi Kade, here. Make sense of what has gone by this week and what we should look forward to next week for me.
Well, this week has been very, very momentous. Very, very momentous in the sense that a more fallout of what we had last week, the insurrection of the Capitol Hill, and the results, the implication is the impeachment that was hurriedly done by the House of Representatives, which saw a historic bipartisan impeachment ever in the history of the United States. And of course, making another history where in the space of 1 year, President Trump was impeached twice. So, so many firsts for this week. But to wrap up the week is having to see Joe Biden laying out this plan, an additional $1.9 trillion for his stimulus package. And of course, today, he swiftly called on Congress to actually pass that relief package soon after he takes office next week, which of course, with a significant sum directed at expanding testing, accelerating vaccine deployment, and of course, safely reopening schools. Now, the bill also includes $1,400 per person, and of course, checks to working families, and of course, extend unemployment insurance, and of course, housing and nutrition aid. Now, the central message of the president-elect here is that the federal government is now finally ready to meet the moment, and of course, will no longer leave financially struggling states on their own to determine how to get the supplies and medical staff they needed to fight the outbreaks. And of course, the Biden team, don't forget, says that they're consulting with lawmakers for weeks in both parties and are pushing for bipartisan support for that plan. But obviously, they anticipate pushbacks from the GOP lawmakers.
Well, I mean, President-elect Joe Biden's America Rescue Plan shows that the fight against COVID and moving America forward is, for him, a natural priority, and it shows the seriousness of the crisis. Even homeless persons are covered with a proposed $5 billion. $130 billion devoted to the reopening of schools, $1,400 checks for every family, and, such a generous proposal. But what are your expectations in terms of how Congress will handle it? Will it go smoothly through Congress? And would this major proposal, which we hope will be one of the first things, will it be overshadowed by the impeachment proceedings or the trial, as it were, in the Senate of departing President Trump?
Well, very good question. I think there are signs that the President-elect Biden is concerned about the upcoming trial and, of course, the impact that is going to have on his first 100 days in office. Recall that earlier this week, the President-elect actually said he hopes that the Senate can bifurcate during the trial, which means they could go like halfway with the impeachment in the day, and the other part of the day, getting his nominees confirmed in the Senate, and of course, as well as getting the COVID-19 relief package. So, but given that many Republicans oppose impeachment or think that it's not even constitutional once Trump has left office, it could be tough to get the cooperation Biden needs and to actually handle a trial alongside cabinet confirmation that, of course, begin work on the new COVID-19 stimulus bill. Biden, of course, and Democrats say that it is critical to actually cut a deal with the Republicans. But one single senator can actually disrupt the efforts to multitask. The Republicans, as much as they are not happy with, what transpired in the White House that led to the impeachment, them still have sympathy for the outgoing president, Donald Trump. And most likely next week is going to be a sort of, a tough task for the Democrats by the time they take over the Senate. But don't forget, they need 17 Republican senators to actually join them to be able to try the president, convict him, and of course remove him from office, which is a tough task for them. But again, we're hearing some, news coming out of the Congress that Joe Biden is most likely going to appeal for a sort of an extension of that so that he can get his way in his 30 days in office.
Well, Rotimi, let's talk about the big day. Biden's inauguration is about to feel and look very different from what we saw 4 years ago. We're talking about barriers and troops. Tell us more. Did you ever imagine this would be an inauguration in America?
Well, nobody will ever imagine that. This is going to be the first time in recent history that I know of, or any other person that will see almost like an empty arena Capitol Hill when Joe Biden would come out address the nation and, of course, by extension, the world. We're hearing that the FBI is actually tracking an extensive amount of concerning online chatter, and of course include calls and of course protests leading up to the next week's presidential inauguration. This is coming from Chris Wray, the FBI director. And of course, we also know that there are several layers of security in and around the DC area. When I went out today, it was more like, the under siege. Like we have 21,000 troops alone that will be in and around the Capitol Hill with the White House and, of course, other monuments like Supreme Courts, etc. That is a singular amount that is more than the troops that was in Afghanistan and, of course, in Iraq. So it's really a business like a ceremony that we're going to have next week. The Vice President has also visited the Guards troops today. To watch out is very with the National Guard. The Hollis was one of the one-time governor of Indiana, and he also encouraged them that they should keep up and serve the country in whatever capacity. Well, of course, next week, the mayor of DC actually said there's absolutely no need for anybody to come in and around the Capitol if you're not invited. Stay in your house and, of course, watch it from your home.
I want to ask you about the future of this Republican Party, because the party looks decimated. And to a large extent, a lot of people have started to say things about the political party called the Republican Party, the grand old party, and what is going to be the antecedent of the future. Do you think this party still stands a chance, if somebody else comes on the ticket anytime soon, like for a presidential election?
Well, Rufai, I think it's a double-edged sword for the Republican Party, as it were, because Donald Trump is the most powerful individual and is still the leader of the party, the Republican Party. And a strong indication is what we saw at the impeachment when only 10 out of 100 House members actually, cut ties with them. They decided to, go with the Democrats. That still tells you that Trumpism will definitely outlive the president. And what the Republican Party are actually looking at this time, or at least the leadership in the Senate and, of course, in the House, are looking at a way to sort of synchronize the Trump base without Trump. And that is very, very difficult, but I think it's possible. And again, they're also putting that into consideration because going forward with the Senate trial or removal, a lot of them won't want to offend the Trump base in a way that will jeopardize the party brand. Because right now, yes, Mitch McConnell and some other leaders of the party in the Senate are already, saying that they're ready to move on without Trump. But at the same time, they have to do it with thoughtful care because there's a thin line between them, being outside Washington leadership and, of course, getting back maybe in 2024 or maybe in 2028.
Well, President Trump is planning to leave the White House on January 20 in the morning, and he will be traveling 1,000 miles away, all the way to Florida, carrying the nuclear football with him. Now, up to this moment, he has not made any contact with the Bidens. But are we likely to get any kind of farewell address from him? Would there be a send-off for him? Is there anything like a send-off in the plans? And is he likely to pen a letter and leave on the Resolute desk in the Oval Office for President Biden? Because when he got there, he met a letter on that table from President Obama. And, there is a famous line in that particular letter. Now, is he going to sustain that tradition, or from the way he's behaving, he's just likely to just walk away in a huff? What should we expect?
Well, President Trump is quite unpredictable, but if we are to go by his character for the past 4 years, I would say that it's most likely he's not going to leave any letter on the Resolute table going out, because in the first place, I think he's still battling with the fact that he lost the elections, and he never believed that the election was free and fair to him. So the bitterness is going to carry that, with him to Mar-a-Lago, where it is going to be his new home now. But again, I think from what we're hearing, the Bidens would not move into the White House immediately, because traditionally, by now, the Trumps, or that's the family of the president, should be exiting the White House in a way to create, that seamless transition for the incoming president. But the president is still insistent and not operating as it should to the Biden's family. They will need a little bit of renovation in and around the Oval Office, and perhaps maybe the personal bedroom of the Biden. So there's a lot of work to do, but I mean, it's most likely that Trump will be Trump, and Biden will definitely will be Biden. But again, there's nothing that we can't see. We cross our T's and dot our I's, and of course, expect the worst.
Rotimi, let's talk about the impeachment for a bit. Do we know when the articles of impeachment will be sent to the Senate, and when action off trial is likely to begin there?
What we're hearing that Nancy Pelosi may likely submit the articles of impeachment that's on the eve of the inauguration, that's on the 19th, on Tuesday next week. If what our sources are saying is anything to go about. But again, there are other annotations that they're looking at. We hear that Biden, the campaign team, are actually looking at the possibility of extending that by maybe like over a month. Recall the last year when the president was impeached, the articles of impeachment was not submitted to the Senate on time. It took weeks before that could be transmitted formally. So the Biden team is most likely going to appeal for that, because if that article of impeachment is submitted next week, most likely is going to overshadow the early days of the Biden presidency.
Rotimi, I want to be very sentimental in this next question. I mean, the new Biden cabinet is beginning to take shape. And we see a lot of Nigerians there in that cabinet. I mean, we see the likes of Wale and some other Nigerians there in that cabinet doing quite well, that are top professionals for themselves in America. I mean, what is it going to look like amidst all of the challenges that the Biden administration is going to face when it comes in with COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of legal issues here and there, and all of that? I mean, how are these Nigerians going to stand out?
Well, I think you first of all need to give it to the Biden team for nominating the most diverse cabinet ever. We've seen so many people from all walks of life being part of the administration, not just Nigerians. And we're very, very privileged to have a stake in the incoming administration, unlike what we've seen in the past 4 years. And of course, we expect that they're going to live up to the billing. They are core professionals, and I think they worked for them to get that recognition. The likes of Wale actually is not a new kid on the block. He also has actually worked with the Obama administration, and before being drafted into the Biden team, he was the president of the Obama Foundation. So I can tell you that this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are more nominations that we're going to see in the future, and most likely we're going to see more people incorporated.
Well, Rotimi, perhaps the last question before we wrap this up. A group of lawmakers in the House of Representatives are proposing a Congressional Gold Medal for Eugene Goodman, the Capitol Hill police officer who stood between the mob and the entrance to the Senate. He led them up 2 flights and diverted them away, and eventually led them away. And is to be honored for his courage, for saving the lives of senators who could have been stormed, while they were inside the chambers. How significant is that gesture by those lawmakers who are asking that he should be honored? And do you think it will go through?
Well, I think it's going to be a bipartisan, unanimous vote from both parties for that courage, the courageous move by the Capitol Hill officer. It's been talked about here, and a lot of people feel that not just the honor, it needs also to be promoted, because by that singular move, it was able to save a lot of lives. The lives of those people who eventually would definitely, for instance, we have some of these insurrectionists capturing according to plan, may have succeeded. And of course, that is one thing that we should be looking forward to. I think they deserve it, and I think it's going to go through, it's going to sail through. Definitely is going to be a good gesture also for future officers within the, not just the Capitol Hill, but nationally.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rotimi, for your time, and you stay safe there in Washington. All right.